welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for checking the channel out. So today we're starting a pretty exciting video series. We are starting turbo testing. Let's check them out. Alright guys, so I've got 4 T3 turbos, 5 if you count the 64 that was originally on the truck. But before we get into some details about these turbos, let's check out the truck because I've made a few changes to it. All right guys, so for any of you that don't know, this is my 02 Cummins. Right now it has a set of 6x13 Monster mic injectors, 084 lines, Monster mic connector tubes, a Scheid Stage 2 VP. Previously, completely stock valve train with the 6473 on it. Has head studs, built trans fast, blah, blah, blah. The best it ever did was 742, 1,360 foot-pounds of torque. That was with me tuning it with the Quadzilla, and that was on 45 pounds of boost and about 55 PSI of drive pressure. So since my last video, I can no longer say stock engine. I recently upgraded. We got the Hamilton valve springs in here and Hamilton push rods. I also got rid of the old BD manifold, and now we have a T3 Steed speed on here. Wastegate provision, EGT probe. I got one for the gauge, one for the water meth, and one for the insight. Also have a drive pressure gauge in there. So now we do have a different charger on there. This is a 1 of 1. It is a 677112 from GT Performance. Greg Turner Performance, he built this for me. It's a very large base HX turbo, 9 blade, billet wheel, race cover. We're hoping to do something cool with it. So basically our goals with this charger is possibly to use it for compounds. It'll be the manifold charger. So horsepower wise, we're not 100% sure what it'll do, hopefully around 700. But we're really hoping for is a large torque increase and the turbo lighting at a low RPM to kind of help feed that large charger when we put compounds. Yeah, definitely a big shout out to Greg. Awesome dude. He's kind of one of the very first people that supported this kind of VP project I've been doing. You know, the goal is obviously to make 1,000 horsepower on fuel only, but Greg is one of the very first people that showed interest in it, one of the very first guys I talked to. So yeah, been a good working relationship so far, and we're excited to see what this turbo does. Just I guess while we're on the subject of shout outs, definitely big shout out to Quadzilla. They were like the first guys that reached out to me that showed interest in what I was doing. Haven't talked with Kelton in a while, but Quadzilla, appreciate you guys reaching out. Obviously Edge, run the comp and run the insight. Lenny over at DDP, of course, send me a nice set of injectors that we haven't put in yet. That'll be a whole other video series. But yeah, just kind of shout out to everyone that helped me out. Obviously Donovan and Armor, where I work, always letting me use the dyno and whatnot, but it's nice to just have some help, that's for sure. Yeah, let's check these turbos out. Hopefully you can hear me. Just got a new furnace installed in the garage. The old one shit the bed, so let's check these bad boys. All right, this first turbo that we have here, this is a 67-67-9 billet wheel, ported gate. This is built by Josh Spiker. He's a Alberta boy, so cool to have a Canadian on board and cool to test out a HE351 base charger. Next turbo we have here, this is a S300 HE351 hybrid. So it's basically an S366 billet wheel, and then it's got a machine HE351 back half exhaust housing on it. So this turbo is from Ben White. He's in BC, so 2 Canadians stepping up to the plate, which is super cool. But this is a 66-68-9. Should work pretty good. It's got some really cool rifling on the compressor housing, but yeah, definitely interested to see how this bad boy is going to work. All right, so this next charger is something, it's a little experiment that me and Ben are doing. I just assembled it. First thing I will show you is this. This is a 0.91 exhaust housing, and this is from the VS6973. So what we have done is Ben has machined a 9 cm. He's a huge fan of these exhaust housings. And what I've done is put it on this VS. So now we have a ball bearing billet wheel, 73 exhaust wheel, 69 compressor, and it is on an HE351 machined exhaust housing. So this is going to be a really cool experiment. Basically, we're going to see how this does with the exhaust housing from Ben on it, and then when we switch it to be T4 turbo testing, we'll see how it works with the 9.1 housing on it. But it's just going to be really cool to kind of compare it and just see how it works, see how different housings work. Okay, so let's go over the plan here. So I will do some drivability as much as I can. It is wintertime in Alberta. This is not a truck that sees winter, so it's really dependent on the roads. You know, I'm trying to bring you guys content, so I can't wait till summer, basically. The next thing, obviously, all these turbos are gonna go on the dyno. We're gonna try and keep similar boost to the 64, which is right around 45 pounds. We'll monitor drive. For simplicity reasons, I'm just gonna run the comp, probably run it on all 5 levels, and we'll just see what it does. Like I said, I love the Quadzilla, but it needs to be dialed in, and I'm not gonna write that many tunes. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think what I will do is, if there's a turbo that's making really great power, like way more than the rest of them, I'll mess around with the quad just to see, but we're trying to keep things fair. I didn't do any requests for turbo sizes. These are just what guys were interested in having testing done on. So yeah, I think we got a nice little variety. I'm really interested to see how the VS does with the smaller exhaust housing on it. But yeah, I'll throw the valve cover on the truck, warm it up, and drive it over to the shop, and we'll see what this 67 from Greg does. All right, guys, so we're gonna run over to the shop now. Kind of see how it drives on the way over. I'm not gonna do too much driving just because this truck's in pretty decent shape. It's never really winter driven. So we'll just kind of see how it acts on the way over there. All right, guys, just driving over to the shop right now. First impressions, it's super whistly. I don't have an air filter on it right now, but whatever. It's pretty much like instant boost. It's like the second I touch the throttle, it's making like 5 or 10 PSI. I wish we could get on it a bit, but the roads are just super slick right now, especially with this truck. But yeah, just cruising. Now that it's a bit warmer out than last time I drove it, it's not surging quite as much, but I still can't really use overdrive without it bucking. But that's not related to the turbo. That's all about the pump and lines. But yeah, sounds cool. All right, guys, made it to the shop now. Just gonna wash this thing off because the roads kind of messed it up, and then we'll pull it onto the dyno. Yeah, I love this truck. The wrap, the 4G limited wheels or 5G limited wheels, whatever those are. Sport front end, just this color looks so good. All right, guys, time to test the first turbo. This is the 6771 HX-based turbo from Greg Turner. Let's see what she's got. We're gonna run through the edge levels and see what kind of numbers we get. All right, guys, we just did our first pull with no tune. It did 494, 1,030. So that was only at like 32-ish pounds of boost. That's kind of how the turbos get shipped around that safe area. So what we're gonna do is mess with the wastegate a bit, and we kind of want to get it around that 45-ish mark, which is what we were running the 64 at. So we'll tighten it up and just kind of make a couple of runs until we're in that boost area, and then we'll see what it makes. All right guys, so like I mentioned, we're just adjusting the wastegate there a little bit. I loosened off the jam nut, I marked where it was, and then we'll just kind of start to turn it in about one turn at a time, and we'll just monitor boost, and then once we're kind of in that 40-45 pound range, then we can start doing some pulls. Alright guys, so that's approximately one turn on the gate. We're up about 75 horsepower now, 570. Another 23 foot-pounds. All right guys, so I'm gonna do another turn now, and like these haven't been full pulls because I kind of know around the area this truck is reaching maximum boost. So we're gonna do another full turn, and then we'll see what it makes, and we're gonna keep going up till we're in that area that we want to be at. Alright guys, so I did another turn, picked up about another 13 horsepower, another 20 foot-pounds of torque, right around that 40 pounds of boost. So we're going to turn it up some more, and then once we're in that area, we'll start using, because remember this is just without a tuner at all. So once I have kind of the boost where I want it, then I'll do some outside videos. I'm filming inside right now, so that way I can re-watch it. There's just a lot of stuff to monitor in here, so it's just easier that way for me right now. Alright guys, so this is kind of what we were hoping. You can see that peak power is made around 3,000, which is very similar to the 64. However, peak torque is being made about 400, almost 500 RPM sooner, which is exactly what Greg said would happen with this setup. So I'm gonna turn the edge on now, and before we mess with the gate anymore, and just kind of see where it's at. Right now, our boost is right around 40, our drive is right around 45, so it's kind of in that happy area. Alright guys, so comp on level 1, pretty much making the exact same power. We're down like 3 horsepower and up 2 foot-pounds of torque. So we'll do one more run. We're going to turn it up to level 2, and then we'll let the truck cool down a bit, and we'll do the other levels. Once we kind of have that level that's making the most power, then we'll probably turn in the gate some more. We don't suspect that much more boost, but we're going to increase the drive a bit and just kind of see where it ends up. All right guys, so why are we making less power as we increase the tune? Well, we are giving this thing a lot of fuel, and it's pretty common knowledge that if you give it too much fuel down low, it almost puts the flame out. So I'm gonna go into the edge and see if I can mess around with the low boost fueling and see if I can turn that down so it doesn't come in as aggressive and we don't fuel until it's already started to spool the charger, and we'll see what kind of difference that makes. Like I said, this is an HX based charger. It's a small exhaust housing, so this charger, playing with it is a bit different than the S300s that we will be playing. All right guys, so we're gonna run it on level 2. What I've done is I turned the boost fueling from 10 PSI, which is where it's set at, up to 20 PSI. And we're gonna see what kind of difference that makes bringing in all the fuel a bit later, but when it's building more boost to hopefully not put the flame out. If that works, I will turn it up some more, and I will also increase wastegate. So that like picked up a minute amount of horsepower, like 3 horsepower, but also drive was really low, like only 20 psi, which is super strange. I guess that's from it not being driven so hard down low. So I'll try 15 this time and see what it does. So it's making the exact same power. That doesn't really seem to be affecting it. So we're gonna go up some levels and we'll just kind of see what it does. And like I said, mess with the wastegate. I don't know, my boost gauge just stopped working now. So I was reading on the math, it was like 38 PSI or 37 or something like that. So yeah, it kind of seems to be no matter what level we have the edge on, it's right around that 600 mark that this turbo is making. All right guys, so I turned the gate in, another spring. I'm gonna turn the edge back off, or on level 1 actually, because that seems to be where we're making the most power. And we'll just see what it does. I think this turbo is kind of happier on the 600 horsepower mark. And I think mainly it's because we have so much fuel. I'm sure I could mess with the Quadzilla and dial in some low boost fueling and whatnot, but we're just testing. Yeah, my boost gauge stopped working. I mean, it's pretty old. I have a bunch at home, so I'll have to swap one of those in. Right now, I'm just reading it off the water meth. It has its own source, and the inside has its own source too. I don't know how accurate it is. I've never really paid attention. I mostly use that to watch EGT and to watch fuel pressure. This time I'll film the edge so we can just see what EGT is doing. With the meth in the 64, even after full pull, I don't think it ever really got hotter than like 1200, 1250. Like, that's a pretty dialed setup for this truck. There we go guys, that's 4 turns now. 616, and I should have pointed this out. It is starting to make boost, or sorry, not boost, peak engine power way sooner, 2700. Peak torque, we're up to 1200 now on 2600. So the 64 made peak horsepower at 3000, peak torque at 2900. So this turbo is pretty much doing exactly what Greg said it would do, which make power get less early. So I'm just gonna turn it in one more turn. Honestly, we're almost at a wastegate, and we'll just see where drive is at. Like I said, boost is kind of like around that 37. I think I was seeing like 39, 40, but that's like as high as this turbo wants to go. We're just increasing drive right now, but it's making more power. I don't want to go too crazy with the drive, just because I only have 425s. When I build the next engine, it'll have 625s and an O-ring head, but we're trying to make this one last at least for a little bit, right? All right, guys, so that's 5 turns in total from how it got. I wish I could tell you some numbers, but my gauge is screwed up all of a sudden. But 638, 1231, and we're making peak horsepower and peak torque both at 27 RPMs, which is pretty cool. All right, guys, so I think I'm gonna try and keep these videos like 1 turbo per video. All like super impressive. I know there's gonna be people that are gonna wonder, they'll be like, well, why is a bigger turbo, because they see 67 compared to 64, making less power? You guys got to remember, my other turbo is an S300. It's way different chassis than this turbo, which is based on a stock turbo put on a lathe and machined out. This is an HX35 base turbo, so it's super impressive. Also, I'm pretty sure I know why my dry pressure gauge stopped working. I think I said boost earlier, but it's dry pressure. I only had like this really small, I don't even know what that is, like 8-inch copper at home, and I bet you it's plugged up already. I'm probably gonna need to go to a bigger size, which is fine. It's no big deal. I'll buy that, but I really didn't think it'd plug up that fast in my defense. But yeah, gonna unload this on the dyno. I was gonna leave it here and maybe try another turbo tomorrow, but I only have time to be here on weekends for like one day, you know. It's super time consuming, and I love doing these videos, so I just kind of do them as I have the time for them. But next, I think we'll test Ben's 66, 68. It's the most logical charger to put on next, in my opinion. And then we'll do the 67, 67. I don't know, with it being an HC351, if the intercooler pipes line up, I might have to make something. I'm not really sure yet. And then we will save the 69, 73 with the machined HE351 housing on it for last, just because we want to see what that one's gonna make, and I'm kind of teasing it by saving it for last. But like I said in the beginning of the video, obviously huge shout out to Greg. He's like the OG guy who wanted to work with me when I first started doing this a few months ago, so huge shout out. Check out GT Performance. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Like, comment, subscribe, it all helps, you know. So till next time.